we have to be careful to the voices that we hear, because they really do affect um, how we see the world. They affect and um, the only way that appearances can change is that the mind uh, creates or projects uh, a new picture. And so, however you see the world, we were riding over from the studio this morning. Um, um, Kadara and I, and we were talking about this and how important it is to pay attention to what you take in to your consciousness, because there's going to be an outward projection of that. It's like we think like we see things with our eyes, but in actuality, it's not really the eye that sees. It's something back here, and it's like just the camera or the apparatus by which that projection comes forward. But we always say, what do we see with? We see with our eyes, But there's really something else going on, um, and and part of what the Dharma does is it helps us see what else is going on, because I can have a leak come in the roof and the ceiling, and it might leak right there. But it doesn't mean that the leak is actually coming in from the roof right there. It could be coming over there and running to the lowest place and coming in right here. So I can repair over here all day long, and it's not going to stop. It's not going to stop the leak. Yeah. So that's uh, the difference between scattered wisdom and prajna. Prajna has the far-reaching capacity to actually know and take care of things at the point of cause, CAUSE, at the point of cause. And if we can allow that to happen, regardless of how we see where it's coming in at, our eyes are so fixed on where it's coming in, and how to take care of that. But what prajna does is prajna takes care of it at the source, and after a while, that will dry up right there. And in the meantime, one can see that one can allow what is happening to be there, because they know that it's being taken care of at the source. And so it's going to take some repair time, and this is going to drip for a minute. And so that's what allows us to go through things, to go through the vicissitudes of life, or to be with uncertainty. It depends on the kind of faith or confidence that you have in, I'll say, in your Dharma. Because your Dharma is not my Dharma. My Dharma is not your Dharma. Yours is yours and mine is mine. And so we really have to determine what, and something that's obvious, something that's already manifested, something that's already resolved and taken care of. You don't have to have any faith for that. You don't have to have any confidence. That's the effect. But when it is not seen yet, when it has not been heard, has not been accomplished, that's when one has to have faith. And without it, without something to anchor to, you have nothing to project or bring into your waking reality. So I want to say something about dreams, because so many people are having them now, and I don't want us to get turned around. in it because, we don't live in the sleeping dream state. We live in a waking dream state, still a dream state, but we live in the waking one. So while we can use our dreams sometimes to help us to have some insights as to how to better handle ourselves in the waking state, we need to be careful that we don't get so wrapped up in the culture of the dream that we make that our total focus and start living by dreams and our interpretation of that, or somebody's interpretation of that, because it is really only through conduct. You can say, well, the dream helps me understand my conduct, and that can be true. But here's the challenge with that. um, I'm trying to think of a non-confusing way to uh, to express this. Um, it is not necessarily an ultimate way. I'll use that word term. It's not necessarily an ultimate way to untie our knots. Um, it can be very helpful as a partial measure in helping us to do that. But it can also become a deflection, and we start living in our interpretation of what dreams mean. And the mind that doesn't know is not going to be able to interpret it properly, right? Uh, and I want to be really, really clear about this, because that's what happens when there starts to be like really almost like group um, a group consciousness of spiritual progress. Everybody's elevating. One time our Buddha master said to me, he said, so and so, I'm going to give an empowerment to so and so, and when I do, uh, you can come and receive it also. And I was so happy. It was like, don't be so happy, because it's not because you deserve it. It's because he deserves it. And I'm just going to let you be in there. So now you're getting the same reward. It's like coming at the last hour and getting the same pay. I mean, like, so, and so, uh, and so it's kind of like that. We have to, we'll all start to have some kind of experiences, because the water's rising. The level of the water is rising in the building. But don't get sidetracked. The effort has to go into really making the shift in your behavior, because you understand that it is the correct or the right or the true um, action action to take. So that requires some discipline. You know, um, it requires some resolve, and requires understanding the role of discipline in our work. So I want to talk a little bit about that today. Um, that that we think that they're like these mutually exclusive states, and we could call one good and one bad, one good and one evil, you know, and but the difference in good and evil is not not a difference in kind. It's a difference in degrees. If you can really get this, this is going to change your capacity for compassion. If you can understand that good and evil are just states of um, degrees of something. And when you're judging something or being discriminating, that's all you're doing is discriminating between degrees. So, so it's not enough to say, well, this person's bad or that thing is bad and that person's good and that thing is good. It's to get to the impartiality, one has to recognize that it's that it's all of one kind or one category of thing. It just differs in degrees. So somebody can do something and it's to a degree that it is really, really destructive. Somebody else can do something that same thing, but to a different degree, and it's just a little bit bad. Like that wasn't beneficial, or that wasn't helpful. That was absolutely destructive. See, because it's all of the same kind, it just differs in degrees. And once one starts to look at it that way, one starts to shift and know how to bring to any particular circumstance or situation the right amount of corresponding tension to, like on a seesaw, to like balance it out. It also begins to take us away from the dichotomy or of good and bad, right and wrong. It causes us to go to look deeper until one uh, in one situation more compassion is needed. In another situation, protection of others is needed. And how do you know which one to apply at any given time? It takes the prajna to help you with that. Uh, it's one reason why one time one of Jesus' disciples, I mean, Jesus was saying, I'm going to be leaving soon. Uh, and he was telling them about his demise, I can't remember now. I'm not sure whether he actually said he was going to be crucified, but he said, "Soon you'll see me, and then you won't see me anymore because I'm going, I'm going to be delivered up." And then one of the disciples, was like, "Heaven forbid! Oh no!" And he said, "Get thee behind me, Satan." Because he was holding on to, like, no, never, never for you, because you're who you are. And he was saying that's a wrong view. You don't know then what work I came to do. And so he said it in that way, get thee behind me, because that thought that the disciple had was like, we're gonna ride in. We're part of the great ushering in of the kingdom of God, and this and that, and it was all wrapped up into what he saw as the benefits. And he said, but unless that comes to pass, those benefits can't come into the world. So what was evil for the disciple, Jesus saw as the ultimate good that needed to happen. And that's how things begin to shift for you as you go deeper and deeper into spiritual practice. So the same thing, the thing that appears enjoyable and good to you at a certain level of just basic human instinct, later appears poison to you when you begin to evolve, when you begin to grow and develop, when prajna begins to take root in you. It's like at a certain point, something feels enjoyable to you. And then at the same time, and you feel happy about it, but at the same time, desire, uh, that same desire becomes poison to you. You know, when you are ready to enter into another stream. And so it's very um, individual. You know, it's very individual. And when we start to feel burdened and oppressed, then that means we're trying to wade in somebody else's pool, somebody else's pond. There's a difference between feeling burdened by what it takes to walk this path and feeling a kind of um, a remorse and a kind of grief for uh, like the good I would do, I don't do, and what I don't want to do, I do. These are all necessary steps along the path, you see. There's a time that joy will come, an abundant kind of joy, even in the midst of struggle. And it's the kind of joy that erases the sorrows that were that manifested because one was on another level. And as you start to um, heighten, moving more towards the Buddhic nature and less, you know, towards the ordinary uh, human nature, you can the shifts in mind become very obvious to you. Even so, in the beginning, there's sort of like grief because you want to do better, but like I am where I am. Um, and first, you don't even think I am where I am. You just want to do better and you can't, you know. And then there comes a time you want to do better and you begin to do better. And then you see the danger in the other behaviors you had, you know, and then it starts to be where one not only sees the danger, but actually experiences the the grief of making those mistakes, or the grief of harming another person, or the grief of being foolish with what you had, or the grief of not having enough wisdom to know how to properly do something or use something, or the grief that you experience when you know you've gotten into something and now you've grown a bit. That's not the thing you would get in, but you're in it now, you know. And so now you need the wisdom to do one of two things: either to get out of it or to figure out or come to some conclusion that you can live in it. But you can't live in it and continually grieving that you're living in it. And you can't get out of it pining for it because you gave it up. You know, so it starts to align, our thinking starts to align. And it takes time to develop this wisdom, and it takes time for it to all come to pass. And so we struggle, we have um, sorrows in our life, we have confusion, you know, and the only thing that keeps us steady at these times is keeping our eye on what the Dharma says and knowing that we have a choice. It's something good about knowing that we have a choice. Sometimes we think we have no choice, but we're choosing all the time. We're always choosing. So, as when instinct prevails, we like see the world through the lens, you know, of our karma, and that's one stage and one level. So then we start to reason things out, and we start to see how things add up. And now we start trying to do things just well because the Dharma said so. So I'm gonna try to accept that and just walk in it because the Dharma says so. The this is a good intermediate place to be, but it's not a place that one resides forever, because one has to move beyond reasoning. Reasoning can get very, very boring. Reasoning can get very, very staid, and it's almost like a prison. Reasoning becomes a prison because what we actually need to breathe is we need inspiration. That's the difference in life being dull and dead, you know. There's an inspiration that has to take over, and you begin to see the world through the lens of your inspiration. The good thing about inspiration is you can be in the same place that when you're looking at your life through the lens of reasoning versus through the lens of inspiration, one actually gives life and the other actually sucks life out of you. Inspiration has a forward throw. It has you looking forward to what is to come. It has you thinking there's someplace to go and there is something to do. It helps you to know that there is, for every temptation, there is a way of escape. It reminds you that this moment is not the only moment. There's another moment is going to come, and the circumstances could be completely different. They can turn over, they can change, they can shift in that moment. Or one can see that they're on a particular trajectory and they can see the end of that trajectory without fear, because this is the way that it's moving. And so instead of having fear about the future, for those things that are inevitable, they become our friend instead of our enemy. And all of this is taking place in our consciousness. I think when you start to get to this place, there's another shift that takes place, and you start to realize that your purpose, is not to correct everything in life. Up until this time, you do want to do good. You do want to make things better. You do kind of see it as your job, to fix everything or to fix everybody, but at this point, you start shifting, and you no longer see it as your job to correct everything in the world. It's more like you see it's your job to annihilate the mind which projects these things. Yeah. Yeah.
What I sort of hear you saying is that there's less of like a direction or a delusion that's purported in the direction of building some solid sense of self that has to fix everything. And there's more of an owning of a mind state of surrender, of serenity, of I don't need it's like the image that's coming to mind is like a wellspring that is bubbling all the time, where people are just coming to drink, but you're not telling them to, Is that kind of what you mean?
Yeah, sort of, but take it even a little more personal. Now, it's not so much of an eye that's going to make an impact in the world. There's a kind of mind that is that shifts the projection, and that mind is the one that brings the kind of inspiration and life to the world that reasoning can't do. Because reasoning is a lot around self-preservation and preservation of me and mine. You know, that's the reason why we take care of things. So there is a level to go beyond reasoning that breathes a kind of inspiration into the world that helps take people beyond the me and my and mine reasoning faculty, and that's the next uh, kind of like evolutionary state. I mean, like we use words for things like when one enters into a different, a higher realm, and like, but what does that mean? It means, it's something. It's like that. That one is not so concerned in outwardly fixing everything, but breathing into the world the inspiration and the mind. And the same way we're talking about how as a sangha we're all elevating. We all become recipients of that level of mind stream. It's 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 as contagious as the reasoning mind. It's just as contagious. Uh, and so that means that we could do so much more on that level than we can in trying to reason things. We start to see the world through a different lens, and that's the inspiration that we breathe out into the world. Yes.
I wanted to share, is that working?
Yeah.
A recent experience that maybe speaks to this. Someone said, you can close it off. And when I heard that, I suddenly understood that's not closure, that's not resolution. And then I have a situation where, from my perspective, I'm an injured party. And I realized I was waiting and waiting for the change to come with these people who I'm very, very intimate with. And so then and she said, and you can carry them in your heart, kind of like if necessary, but you don't need to. But when I heard those words, I understood that I could just stop thinking about it altogether. And then I was free to love them. And I'm just so happy and free ever since then. I mean, I don't know if those words can convey to you what I'm trying to say,
Yes, that's exactly it. And if we get this, everything will transform. And all you have to have is like one experience of it. And then you start trying it on other things, and then you start to see how just the appearance, the structure of appearance shifts for you. And it's so, when I say it's powerful, I don't mean it's like powerful, but I mean it's uh one sees a different way to be in the world, and that one it, because we don't have a lot of Buddhist songs, we're writing some, but so I use a lot of Christian songs because they wrote some, and so it says, uh, ain't gonna study war no more. So it's like that, getting to the place that you don't have to figure out how you're going to fight things. That you have a different set of of implements. I won't even call them weapons of our warfare. The different set of implements that we can use by which we can transform the structure of appearances. That's better than saying I ain't gonna study war no more. And I'm just trying to change the languaging completely to come to something that's a little truer to how it is, and that this power is resident in us, and it's not that it's dormant. It's not dormant. It's not asleep. It's not retarded. We just don't use it or cannot use it until we evolve beyond the reasoning state. And so this is not to say, this is not against intelligence. This is against the holding the reasoning mind that is so tightly fastened or attached to me, my, and mine, that it governs my conduct and my actions in the world, my relationships with others. Sometimes you can be discovering something and it's good for you, and because it's so good for you, before you can even implement it, before you can use it because it's good for others, you're just stuck on how good it is for you, and it never flows out to to how we relate to others. Let's say you find out something about yourself, and you found this thing out, and it was so great to find that out. I'm finding out things about myself every day. I'm talking about things that's not so great about me, and when I see it, I'm really happy about it, and I can become so happy, we used to have a saying, God is good all the time, God is good. It's just all for me, and but now I'm beginning to see, let me use this on you. Let me pour this out on you. It doesn't stop with me. It doesn't stop with me. Otherwise, we're in a different kind of quagmire. It's a spiritual quagmire now, but we're just in another quagmire. We're still captivated around uh, goodness for me and goodness for mine, and it keeps us from uh, it's almost like, I know this sounds strange, but just hold it for a minute. It's almost like you can't stop evil without stopping good. I'm gonna try to explain it. Maybe I shouldn't try to explain it, but
Can I kind of relate to that?
mhm.
So it wasn't about forgiveness. That went away too. There was nothing
No,
to
that's one
forgive,
to forget.
not for myself right? Because where I took it to that Dharma place was, don't think about it. And the reason why it's extending now, I know how to be kind and accepting and behave, but maybe my mind is still thinking about it when there's having an opinion or a view about somebody else or what's going on. And the Dharma always teaches you that that's all your mind stuff, not to do that. And now I get it. Just don't do it. That you can just not do it.
Mm-hmm.
And so,
yeah,
and that's the goodness. See, you think you're being good, but
right. Yes, yes, that's exactly right. So I just think about this. This is a major shift. That's why we don't have conversation about forgiveness so much in the Dharma because we work at this from another end. So if we think of good and evil as, just degrees of all of one kind of thing, then you know there is nothing to forgive. So we don't have to try to forgive. Um, um, we see it as like it's like incorrect reporting of facts, you know, and just thinking that you can't. There's no way to stop evil without stopping good. Now, last week I talked about stop doing evil and do good. This week I'm talking about no way to stop evil without stopping good. And that's how one gets to uh, 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 impartiality of view that allows for something to happen, something to change, something to shift without having a two-tiered dichotomy of the good person, and the bad person, or the good thing and the evil thing. Just beginning, this is a practice of shifting how we think about things. And of course, words are woefully inadequate, but these states can be known. And so he says, if you rely on words, you're just sunk, because words are not going to take you to the thing, but they can like point in a way that we can kind of look at real life situations, real things that are on our mind, real things, habits that we have. And although we can say all of the right things to say about it, there's this other part of us that's actually living it out in a way that's not exactly authentic to the way that we say it. Or even in our mind, like we are thinking like I'm good and he's not, you know, um, and because we're looking at the outer appearance. But when we give that up, our vision becomes limitless, and we begin to have a different landscape. If we don't, those thoughts that we have that we say we give up, they like pounce back. They just come back. Maybe not for this person, but they just crop up, and that's how you view somebody else. That's not this one, you know. Um, and so, and that's mostly because we think of evil as causes. We think evil is causes, but actually, things that are these are the effects. Effects can be beneficial or not beneficial. And effects of what? Effects of the ways that we have thought and held and viewed and walked out things. And when one sees that, then I mean, there's no way for evil to disappear from society if we think evil is the cause of things. Evil, unwholesome actions is the effect of things. And what are they the effect of? They're the effect of mind states. Yes.
I look at the
Let me give,
evil.
we're going to give you a different, something's wrong with that.
Cause and effect.
I look at the negative things, the things that upset me that people do as the way I take it. It isn't necessarily bad or evil, it might be horrible. But people that act this way are my teachers. They give me the opportunity to move beyond taking things personal, move beyond seeing the negativity of a word that is said wrong or misinterpreted, because it teaches me that I am not where I should be in my expectations of others. I get hung up on negative existence or negative circumstances rather than just seeing it as a teaching opportunity that I can see the way it affects me and then move to the Dharma to handle it and let it go.
Mhm. And so that's in that stage where you're between reason and inspiration, because you're reasoning out the way to um, use it as a platform for growth, as an opportunity for growth. But later on, it'll get to the place where when that's said, they didn't say anything wrong. They're just speaking out of their own mind. That what does that have to do with me? You know, I mean, and I don't have to process it. I don't have to do anything. I don't have to do anything with it, and that brings a certain kind of freedom. But more than a freedom, it brings an empowerment to actually move and act in those circumstances, irrespective of what was coming, what other people brought to the table. It allows one to remain free and speak something different into the environment, or bring something different. Uh, I um, when we had uh, the homes, the group homes for um, it's I don't want to say, I want to speak to it, but I don't even want to say for homeless kids, because that just sounds so, you know what I'm saying. But we called it My Place, so that when the kids were leaving school for the day, and they said, "Where are you going, man?" I'm going to my place. I'm going to my place, like my crib. That's why we named it My Place, so that they could just say that. Um, or they would say, "Hey man, you want to come over to my place? And we can play some games." I wanted them to be comfortable having a place. But the but the thing is that it um, when there's not the thought that something has been said wrong or done wrong, it's just something has been said and something has been done, you know, but it's not my view that you did it wrong and I can overlook it. It's not my view that it was wrong towards me. It was just something that was done. And when I take out that element of having been wronged, that's where the power is to bring a different force to bear in the situation that will neutralize circumstances, and it'll either heal something, or it will, like a party. You can part peacefully and happily, and life just starts to get into order that way. It's a slippery slope we can take towards negativity without even realizing it, without even meaning to. just trying to be good. I mean, a successful person may do a lot of charity work, and may truly, truly have conquered a desire, say for around greed for money and so forth. But now it switches to something else, to like fame, to being known, to being, um, and that's no, it enters their psyche in that same way. So now this money, love of money, has been substituted, or love of fame and power, and the power that that brings to be an important person in the community has, just it just hopped off to that. So in a case like that, then you can see that their good is actually more on the evil side. And so that's why it's a mischaracterization to categorize things as solidly as we categorize. And we do that with people, places, things, and also with ourselves, right? So it's almost having to learn a new kind of language, a new way of speaking to oneself, and a new way of speaking to others, because we really don't know how to speak apart from the first person. You know, we can't hardly put coherent sentences together if it don't start with I and deal with a you. We really don't. So it becomes a challenge. So some people, when they like getting real spiritual, they start speaking in the third person. Yeah. So you do go back to the I, but the I doesn't have the energy, the self-sustaining energy, right? So, um, uh, so this kind of walking out the path, we talk about, and the reason why the Buddha speaks of it as a path to be walked is so that we get out of our heads and out of our knowledge mode. Buddha Master said, when you understand, stay with the principle until you understand it. He said, and then when you understand it, forget about it. Don't become the Pali Canon on two legs. Don't become a walking, talking Bible, we used to say. Once you have taken in, assimilated the truth of something, then he says, like, forget about it. And then you don't even have to worry so much about what you're going to say, when you're in a situation. It will rise up in you at that moment what to say or what to do, or how to do. The thing is that when we're in our thinking mode, we think of what we should say, what we should do, or, for the sake of our protection, our one-upmanship, to protect, and getting out of that mode has to be a natural inclination, but you can't do it if you haven't heard that there's a benefit until you receive the inspiration of stepping out of that reasoning mode. Um, um, when sometimes it feels a little bit lonely, like you ain't got nobody to talk to, because who can understand it in this way, you know? And that's also uh, a natural, normal thing. We kind of learn how to be alone together. Mm, alone together. So we're not like all singing kumbaya, you know. Um, that's one of the great tragedies of the current one consciousness movement, you know. Like, so everybody just coming on the love boat, but all these different minds, all these different discriminations. Yeah. And so we work at uh, really penetrating a truth until we find a freedom in it, until that thing works for us. And if it doesn't work for us, then we try something else until we find something that works for us. And then we have confidence in that, And it shifts us from being uh, um, informed to being inspired. And then there's a place to go from being inspired. Inspiration still has weight. It's still binding. It still has a stress with it. It has a try with it, where you're just uh, trying to do. But there's a place beyond that where there is an ease because you're not really trying to do anything. You're like showing up and whatever's within your capacity, you do. And you may, when you start to enter this state, feel like in the world, we might call that what? Not being motivated, giving up. You know, we have words for when you're running, and then you stop or you slow down. We like why you slacking off. Like but diligence at the top end is not so much horsepower. There is more of abiding in a kind of it's like I was going to say a surreal stillness, but I'll call it a real stillness.
Explore this because I feel loving, but it's not really that I love them, right? It freed me to love. Should I repeat that?
Yeah.
I was saying that's helping me explore this experience that I feel love for these people, but actually it's not so personal. I'm just free to love. And that's what I see extending into my experience.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so life begins to shift for you in a very interior kind of way. And what was so hard at one time now becomes pretty like normal. It's easy, and you can do or not do. Uh, the pressure is off. And I think that this takes having a good teacher, which is why I have so much respect for Buddha Master, because it's like there's no more Dharma to give. We're just regurgitating the Dharma out there. There's no more Dharma to give. But it's not about a Dharma that's out here. It's not about really knowing the 5 this, the 10 that, the 37 the other. It's not about all of those things. It's just knowing in every single moment what I am and what I bring to this moment. And the more we become at ease, it's like then the whole world is our oyster. And we're not pressing in to do anything. We're just available. So a lot of times Buddha Master talks about shape shifting. I think he's talking about that in a real tangible physical way, but also in a mental way. It's like if somebody comes by and they need a hairbrush, I can be a hairbrush. somebody else comes by and they need a toothbrush, I can be a toothbrush. I can be a comb. I can be a blouse. I can be, I can be whatever is needed instead of who I am and what I bring. hmm And that is the dissolving of self that begins to take place. Mm. And in that space, misery, happiness, this, there, but I won't say they're the same thing, but one is not overly moved by one or the other. You can be with misery and not be too sad. You can be with happiness and not be too glad. And yet you're recognizing the difference. And then at some point, you're at that still point on the seesaw, and there is really no differentiation. You could just be it in any of it. Any of it. And then you are of use because you're not bringing the pea to drop on one side or the other. Frustration then begins to leave. And we can make mistakes, and we can accept. And it's not because we're throwing away diligence, but that we make room. We make room for a mistake. I guess where I'm getting to is that good and evil depend on one another for existence. You can't have one without the other. So what we're taking home for this week and looking at is, they rely upon each other for survival. Or, in our mind, they rely upon each other. When you have a capacity or a station for good, then there's going to be one for evil. And if you have one for evil, there's going to be one for good. Now, we're just talking about how to take care of our own minds, because right now we're just trying to take care of other people's minds, right? But he's teaching us how to take care of our own mind. And when we find those spaces where we begin to neutralize that in ourselves, then we have something that we can offer to others in our personage, in our presence. Just by virtue of our presence, we can bring something else. It's not who's the most vocal at the meeting. No, I watch the news. It's not so good for me, but I feel like I need to know what's going on in the world. I have opinions about it. But I'm trying to work at not being attached to my opinions about it, because what I see as evil is not a cause. It is a result. It is a fruit of something. So I can't focus on that. That's not going to take care of it, But the mind that created problem can't solve it. So that means if we want to solve the problems of our human existence, we want to solve the problems, and heal our world, we'll have to do it with another mind. Hmm. And so we think about like the world evolving, but it's not about the world evolving. It's us becoming self-realized. That's the only hope for the evolution of the world. And as one awakens, each one teach one. And you teach them through your own thoughts, speech, and action, your own presence, visible and available in a situation. So I want to say that the greatness of the work that we could do in the world, the greatness is not that we don't do anything, but we do without doing. We stay detached from what we do. No, recognizing that nothing really happens in the world until the mind creates it. Yes. It's a piece. That way, not on.
Is it on now? Okay. What you're saying is really, really deep for me. I realize all my life I've been a good girl. I really have. I don't have many stories to tell where I wasn't good because I was raised to be good. It wasn't hard. It wasn't always fun. I missed out on a lot of fun. And I realize now that my desire to learn, to study, to know all of these, to know all the Dharma and to read it and be able to recite it and think about it, and that underlying that, there's a fear of letting go of the mind because maybe I wouldn't be good enough. I wouldn't be as good as I'm trying to be if I let go.
I think that to encounter the Dharma is a very fortunate karma, and that we are at least good people. Otherwise, the Dharma would not appeal to us at all. I mean, like really. So I think we are already good people, and I think that if we go deeper into the teachings and the great grace in meeting Buddha Master is around even giving up our goodness, our perceived goodness that creates an I. And so I think you're right. This is not a talk for everybody, you know, but it is a talk for, how you go so far and then you like kind of hit this glass ceiling. You're just kind of hovering up there. And then after a while, you start thinking, well, this is really basically all there is to it, And then suddenly you find that there's somewhere to go, even beyond right here. And you break through. Now you're here at the bottom of the next of the next level. But it's so encouraging because each time the load gets a little lighter, you know. Um, and then you start wondering, well, now am I doing enough? Am I trying hard enough? I mean, we can't even tolerate ease. We think we have to be struggling, you know, but we don't. And so these deeper states of peacefulness that we enter into, it is our what's it heritage. Inheritance. Thank you. It's our inheritance. I tell you, the files get mixed up as you get older. You just be with that. But it's our inheritance, and to receive it, you know, with just with uh, the great joy that comes. I mean, I think in the course of a day, how very, very little I have to be bothered about, you know? Maybe it's because I have very little, that could be it. But just the freedom, you know, that I have in having an unencumbered life. That it's only as complicated as I choose to make it. I could find lots of things to get pissed off about, or to worry about, or to get busybody about, or you know, to engage, or even to feel guilty about if I wanted to, or to put you on a guilt trip if I wanted to, you know. But you start seeing like no need. It's just like we don't have to be drama mamas. We just really don't. You know, but it's a habit. It's a habitual tendency that we have. The day when the eclipse happened. So we went out to take a look, right? And next thing you know, here comes Sada, and we see this tail flapping in her arms. A squirrel came and just jumped in her lap, and she's in her arms, and she's walking out there with the squirrel. And I'm freaking out about the squirrel. You know, I'm thinking about rabies, wow, bite you. And she just said, look at that. She said, oh, squirrel. So where come you? Oh, he just come jumping. I'm not scared. Or something like that. Look, you need to put that squirrel. No, I was that you need to put that thing down, you know. And she was like, no, it's okay. He's okay. I'm like, you don't know that, you know, but that's where my mind was, and that created my whole world in that moment, you know. But she wasn't bothered by it at all. Not at all. And I said, but I'm gonna tell you what I did say. Oh, that I could be so harmless that you know, a wild animal could come and jump in my arms and feel safe. Oh, that I could be. Mm-hmm. I said, oh, that I could be that harmful. My own cat runs from me. You know, I mean, when I get around my cat, he lets me know what my real state of mind is. You know, like if I'm really like loving and he comes around and crawls around. Sometimes he looks at me and goes, ah, and he takes off. And then I say, oh, I must need some kind of attitude adjustment inside because he's picking up on something. You know, yeah. So this is how joyful life can be when you're walking the Dharma and being willing to hear and try, not to learn everything, but just to get something. And hold that one something and look at it throughout the week through many different lenses until you're one with that view. Then you can forget about it. You don't have to bring it up anymore. It's indelibly burned in you. And it becomes you, and you become it. And it's in this way, not through the gathering of so much knowledge, but in penetrating the reality of whatever teachings we have. So the thing is, and I'm finished, that like we don't have the ceiling full of lights, and yet the room is full of lights. We just have 1, 2, 3, 4, but they each have 4 ballasts in them. And that's how many we have in the room. So what I'm saying is one little bit of light is enough to light up a whole room. So it's like the domino effect. Pushing over the first domino just causes a domino effect. To know this one thing is to suddenly have the brightness to see 20 things. That's what the quick path is. You ain't got to learn every single thing. But one light can light up 10 things. That's the difference in scattered wisdom, 1 for 1, right? In our worldly wisdom, our scattered wisdom, 1 for 1, versus prajna. One thing can reveal 100 things. And the type of light. And so this light might show up certain kinds of blemishes, right? Or stains or spots. But if these were black lights, that you can't see under these fluorescent lights. And so the prajna is kind of like that. The black lights that show up all the stains that you can't see with the ordinary light. I'm just going to take a few minutes to tell a story share a story that Buddha Master shared. There was a Dharma preceptor who had a fellow disciple by the name of Dharma Master Kuji. Dharma Master Kuji was no ordinary person. The way he cultivated himself was different from the rest. He didn't cut his hair. He let his hair grow long. He was a monk who ate the proscribed pungent vegetables. He ate everything, but he especially liked dog meat. He often carried on his shoulders an iron Zen staff, and he wandered about all over the place. One day he suddenly wandered to the temple of Precept Master Dao Xuan. Upon hearing that he had arrived, Precept Master Dao Xuan became very angry. Precept Master Dao Xuan was the foremost precept master in all of China at that time. He belonged to the consciousness only school. Followers of the exoteric school learned the precepts and rules of discipline that he taught. And since this other Dharma preceptor, Dharma Master Kuji, had the same teacher as the master of this big temple, he was obliged to receive him. He couldn't say you can't come. He had to receive him. And so he received him, and he provided him with a room that was right next to his own abbot's room. And it says, however, a most troubling matter arose. Dharma Master Kuji brought with him a skewer that held about 5.5 pounds of dog meat. And he said to the precept master, the abbot, brother, find a monk to help me stew this dog meat. Upon hearing this, the abbot became irate. However, his master had taught him to yield to this other master whenever they came together. It was his monastery. He was the abbot. He said, but whenever your brother comes, yield to him. So Precept Master Daojian was very fond of practicing Zen, the abbot. One day when he was in the midst of meditating, he heard the loud snoring of Dharma Master Kuji, who was sleeping late rather than up doing his morning meditation practices. And this made the abbot very angry. He wanted to enter a deeper state of peacefulness, but the snoring of this other master woke him or kept him from entering into his meditative state. There was something else that greatly angered him. Because his self-cultivation was very high, this is the abbot, his cultivation was very high, celestial beings delivered food to him every day. However, starting from the day that Dharma Master Kuji arrived, those celestial beings no longer delivered food. Now, I remember when Pannavati and I went out to study with a master in California. And before she would let you come, we had a practice. She introduced me to the practice called Bigu, B-I-G-U. And in order to be able to come, or one of the qualifications being able to come out to and stay at her temple, is you had to be able to do Bigu. So what Bigu was, there's some other parts and I'm not going to go into, but basically it was having a prune in your mouth, and you had one prune a day. And then you kept the seed under your tongue for the rest of the day. That was the ritual part. Then you had to connect to a coordinate that the master gave you. And she gave me a coordinate, 930. Now, first of all, I don't know what coordinates are. But she said, you have to take your mind, meet me at these coordinates, 930. He said, and if you meet me there, that's where you'll have your nutriment. And if you can do this for 30 days, then you can come. So I told Pannavati, I'm going to do this. And he was like, okay, go ahead. He wasn't going to do it, but I was going to do it. That's my thing. So I did. Now, all I could do is I read everything I could find about her, and I had developed some faith and confidence in the testimonies about her from people that this master had something I wanted. I wanted to study with her, and she was in California, and we were in Maryland. But I did what she said. I got a bag of prunes. I put the first, I'm going to just tell you, because if you do this, it ain't going to work for you, because it has to have the empowerment. And I took my mind to 930. I had a picture of her that I had, because I found her in a Qigong magazine. I had a picture of her there, and I would look at her picture, and I would think, 930 coordinates, and I didn't have a whole lot because I was living sort of like a hermit at that time. I didn't have things in the course of my day to bother me. Mostly we just read and did qigong and stuff like that. So as you say, I wasn't like bad. You know, I might not have been going anywhere, but I wasn't like interfering in the conditions of the world, messing them up with my mind, you know. And so after about the second day, first of all, I was not hungry for the whole 30 days. The second day, there was like a light that kind of went to 930. Now I'm thinking I'm doing this right. I'm jettisoned to 930. Didn't know that it was her. It was me. I'm I'm connecting at 930. And every time I did, and I had to do it at noon, and every time I did, uh, I felt full and light began to come into the room. So Pannadipa comes out at noon one day. The room was full of light. So that's why he ended up going with me. Uh, um, and that happened for 30 days. And at the end of 30 days, during that 30 days, I was not hungry. And I was maybe not just me, but Panya Deepa, who wasn't doing the practice, also detected in a tangible way some kind of ray of light that was moving. And that's when I was fed. And so I went out there and we studied with her for some time. And so when he talks about the celestial beings coming and feeding, I understood it because I know a human person who had certain capacities to do. Um, and so, anyway, he says these celestial beings would come and provide food for him. He said, but they hadn't come since this guy got here with his dog meat and his snoring and not getting up to meditate and all of that. And he said, that lousy monk has defiled this temple. Celestial beings no longer come to my temple. And he was very indignant. On the fifth day, Dharma Master Kuji, on the fifth day of his stay, the abbot protested and he said, brother, you should do a bit of your daily meditation. All you do is sleep the whole night, and that's not good. You should also decrease the sound of your snoring. And although you don't do your daily meditation, I still do mine. The sound of your snoring is so loud and has annoyed me so much. And so the master said, brother, don't speak like that. I have not disturbed you. It is you who have disturbed me. He said, I was sleeping so soundly. At around midnight, a flea bit you. You then took hold of it and you were thinking of squishing it to death, but you didn't. You were thinking that you must not harm any living being, so you threw it on the floor. In doing so, you broke the right leg of that flea, causing it great pain. And the flea cried out, Precept Master Dao Jin has no conscience and is very bad. He's a monk and a great master of this generation, yet he broke my leg. Because that flea was yelling the whole night, I had no way to sleep. That annoyed me very much. And when the abbot heard this, he was astounded. He thought, he was in the room next to mine. How did he know that I took hold of that flea last night? How could he possibly have known this? He was sleeping. He doesn't do his daily meditation. He decided he wouldn't say much more. All he says was, forget it, brother. Let's just say that what I said was wrong. Although he was embarrassed, he did not admit his mistake concerning the flea. And after saying those words, then that master left the temple. At around noon on the day that he left, those celestial beings resumed their delivery of food to the abbot. He was very happy, and he said to those celestial beings, disciples, I have let you down. That monk fellow disciple of mine who eats the pungent vegetables has sullied you. Those celestial beings replied, we don't know anything about that. Precept Master Dao Jin, the abbot, then asked, well, why then have you not delivered food to me these past few days? And those celestial beings answered, you do not know that 5 days ago a great bodhisattva arrived here? Vajradharma protecting deities were everywhere. They stood guard around 12 and a half kilometers around this temple. The whole sky was filled with them. And they said, nobody was allowed to pass through. Therefore, even we were unable to come here. Upon hearing this, the abbot knew what a mess he had made of things, since his fellow disciple was a true bodhisattva. Even those celestial beings could not approach that master because he was surrounded by his Dharma, his Vajra Dharma protecting deities. Although the abilities and supernatural powers of Precept Master Dao Jin, the abbot, were great, he was simply a great master of the Abhidharma treatise. He had only learned the Abhidharma treatise. But Master Kuji was simply a great master of the Hetavijja treatise. He had learned that one. And so I think I'm going to end on that story. There are different Dharma methods. There are different Dharma teachings. All of them are not the same. They're not the same level, not the same capacity, or produce the same capacity of realization in you. So when you find a good teacher that has, as Sister called it, a high Dharma, you should stick with it. Now the monk down there is saying to her stay and let's talk Dharma. Before it's like Bhikkhuni can't know any Dharma, you know. Now it's like stay and let's talk Dharma. I suspect that maybe in a year or within a year even, they will have built a place for her. So where she's been rejected since 2011. When did I first give you? She took her novice ordination 2011. There were no Cambodian females, monks at that time, and she would just take her. We would just do like she take her vows, put on her robes, and come stay for the weekend or week. Then she'd take them off and put on her lay clothes and go back and be with her community. But over the years, she just stuck with it, until because she could have been a monk 11 years ago. I mean, since 2011, but she didn't even believe it herself, you know. But then one day, I went down there to get her, and she wasn't home. And the next day, she showed up with her suitcase. And she said, I'm ready. I'm all in. Because suddenly she believed that it was for her. You know? And now the monk is so happy when we come down to visit. He's just gradually, you know, changing his mind just by the tenacity and her not giving up on her own great wish, and it's going to change everything at that temple. Yeah, I wish I got a picture of that squirrel though. Yes. And then after that, if anybody else wants to say anything, and if not, if somebody will offer a merit for today.
That was speaking to the problem of the good girl. The good girl has to think about others' needs and not her own. That's the way. And so to do it for me, because I want it, is the obstacle. So that, you know, it's a wrong understanding of selflessness, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But I was reminded of the good girl when she's like, I'm ready. And that's the obstacle for the good girl. Are you ready to have your own life?
Mm-hmm.
I say that because I was a good girl. And I want to relate to all this story because it's the same thing. My teacher was taking us to his mother's monastery in Tibet. And I told myself, oh, I can't take the family's money. I can't do that. I can't have it. Not for me. And then a Dharma sister called me, and in the course of the conversation, my mind flipped, and it's like, I let myself want it. It's like, I want it. This is right after Hurricane Katrina. It so happened that I was advertising a really high-end pool table that someone had stored with us and then gave it up. And then I was selling it, but I wasn't selling it for me. At that moment that I said, I want it, someone was reading the ad and he got up and walked across to his neighbor who was a doctor who had money and who was wanting a pool table. Within 10 minutes, they called me and that man came with cash and I used that money to go to Tibet. But the point of the story is that when I arrived there, I was no longer the good girl.
Mm.
I was put with a group of women who were taking care of the llamas. They were the good girls, right? They were even like competitive. I get to do this, I get to do that. So there was nothing left for me to do because I wasn't the good girl anymore. So I was scrubbing dish towels and stuff, you know. But what I experienced is that I was just there, like you were saying, to respond to whatever appeared in front of me that I could respond to, which was really the good girl, right? But that obstacle, I know what you're up against, and you know, to give it to yourself. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I mean, I even look at it, and we're through. Somebody want to close for us. Speaking of nuns now, and how difficult it is for us, you know, to have a life. And so the temples are built for the monks, and monks have everything they need. And the nuns give up everything. They give it to the monks. They give it to their children. They give up everything they need, and they walk out with nothing. So we all have nothing. So we never can get to having something because we, even when we go forward, we give away everything instead of using it for the Dharma, you know, because we don't think that we deserve or that we should even use what we have for ourselves, you know, and it's an issue. That's why after 25 years, the nuns have been here, Theravada nuns. We only have 35 who have survived, you know, and but that's where they are in their growth and in their development.
Venerable, I left out the most important part. That sounded like it was kind of psychological, but you know, it wasn't. We were going to be with His Holiness Moksha Rinpoche, highly realized. I was linking up with him. That link,
Mhm.
that's what, I'm no longer codependent. I'm no longer the good. I linked up with that mind.
Yes.
That's what did it. That's what did it.
Yeah.
And that's your stories today, you know.
Yeah. Anybody else miss anything before we close? Hey, somebody want to close? Oh. You're not on.
Not run off with the batteries.
Talk loud then.
May the fruit of our study, cultivation, and penetration be a balm and a nectar that eases the suffering of all beings across this great ocean of samsara. May we perfect the activities of awakening in all that we do, so that through our conduct and our mind, we are able to act in accord with the various disposition of beings. And may we have the courage and the strength to overcome fear and to deepen into the next step on the path in whatever way we know is true. May, may squirrels fall on our lap.